control system. And that it's kind of an ominous notion. It's not necessarily something you'd like to think about, that human existence is some sort of kept on a dial, and there's someone turning the dial, keeping everything in accordance with some ideal of which we know nothing. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's benign. Maybe this phenomenon and all this other strange phenomena that preceded it constitute something, an evolutionary process at work. Whitley Strieber had remarked once, and I thought it was a very astute observation. He said maybe the UFO phenomenon is nothing more than what evolution looks like to the conscious mind. And that's kind of a cryptic statement, kind of causes you to kind of scratch your head and think about it for a second. But, I think that's as good an explanation for the UFO phenomenon as any I've heard, quite honestly. And it could be entirely wrong, but I don't think that anyone has the answers. And that's one part of the UFO debate, such as it is, that I'm really dissatisfied with. I think the UFO debate has become excessively polarized in favor of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, and in the years since that has become the veritable gospel of this strange phenomenon, this strange going on.
Is that because it's easier to comprehend?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I think it's easier to comprehend. It's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. It makes sense. There's nothing wrong with it. And, we could be dealing with disparate phenomena that happen to look the same to us, as organisms with fairly limited concepts at their disposal. But yeah, I think the extraterrestrial idea is the most logical. You see something in the sky that you can't explain, and it appears to be a structured vehicle. Well, you can rule out certain countries. When this phenomenon began, it was Russia we were concerned about. Could these be Russian reconnaissance devices, or bombers? What could they be? We were able to rule out terrestrial superpowers making these aircraft. So, they came from elsewhere, outer space. So that became the the parting line, and soon after the term flying saucer was replaced with UFO, simply to make it seem more innocuous. But nonetheless, UFO still remains semantically linked with the idea of space visitors, and certainly we could be being visited by beings from other planets, but I don't think we have any conclusive proof of that. And when people discuss the UFO controversy, it's almost always in terms of extraterrestrials. And certainly we should be talking about the possibility that we're being visited. Frankly, I'd be surprised if we weren't visited occasionally. There's nothing ludicrous about that.
And it's probably been ongoing. That.
I would think it would be ongoing. But the UFO phenomenon, as we popularly see it and talk about it and see it on films and et cetera, doesn't conform to what I personally would expect an alien civilization from another star system to look like. The behavior is very conspicuous. It seems to deliberately draw attention to itself at the same time that it denies its own existence. We have cases like the Malmstrom Air Force Base case, where these unknown objects hover over a nuclear installation and turn off the missiles one by one. This is quite dramatic. And why would an alien civilization, some sort of arbitrarily advanced extraterrestrial species, what interest would they have in doing something like this? If we share the planet with an indigenous humanoid intelligence, or indigenous intelligence, it wouldn't even necessarily have to be humanoid, that offers a possible explanation about why we see these acts, these interference cases with military aircraft, nuclear missile silos. Maybe they share the planet with us, and they are concerned for their own well-being. Maybe they're not doing it for us. We're a very selfish species, and when we encounter a case like the Malmstrom Air Force Base, where these missiles were shut down by these apparent glowing red objects, we tend to think, they were showing us a message. It was a demonstration for us to turn off our nuclear missiles, because presumably the space people don't like nuclear war. And
maybe an atomic weapon in a blast, Mac, tears apart something between space and time. Maybe it rips it to shreds, and it affects them somehow.
Yeah, in the early days, I should say, of the UFO phenomenon, that was the idea behind the Roswell crash, that they were attracted to that area of the Southwest because that's where we were testing out nuclear bombs, and they were frightened by that because the radiation or something was impacting the cosmos in a way that we weren't able to appreciate at the time. And it's a valid point, and I suppose you could fall back on Stan Friedman's point that they were afraid that we were becoming an aggressive spacefaring species, and they wanted to see what was up before it got out of hand, before we started entering space in a more vigorous way.
Well, there's no question. I think one glimpse of this planet at any given time, you would say, my gosh, all they do is fight.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. But at the same time, you look at this planet, and I don't see us going anywhere anytime soon in any meaningful way. I mean, there might be a mission to Mars in 20 years. I mean, you're hearing stories like this, and it's encouraging in a sense, but at the same time, it also highlights just how tenuous our presence in space is. I don't think we're going to be visiting the interstellar neighborhood anytime soon. And I think we're stuck on Earth for a while, unfortunately, for the most part. I mean, there might be a few people visiting the Moon and Mars in the next 50 years, and that's great. But as far as being a menace to a highly advanced species out there in space, I don't see it. I don't see how we would be a possible threat against a species even 100 years in our advance, let alone millions of years, which is what we very well might be dealing with if these alleged beings are indeed out there and hailing from other planets.
Friday night we're doing a 2-hour special because of the 50th anniversary of the Twilight Zone. And today I had an opportunity to interview William Shatner on tape, and we're going to play a portion of it Friday night, Mac. He's been on the program before. He was in 2 great Twilight Zone episodes, Nick of Time and then the scary one of in space, where he was on a plane and he saw the gremlins on the wing. And, you know, I talked with him just about space because Star Trek, of course, catapulted his career. And in that area, everyone was a federation. You know, life was good. They were all there to take care of each other, and they band together. I'm not so sure that would happen in this existence. Are you?
I don't know. Sometimes I think that if species become sufficiently advanced to the point where they're out in the galaxy roaming around, space might be so big that tensions might not even exist in the first place, simply because there's an excess of space. If you want to do something you enjoy, you can go elsewhere, but there's enough room. I could be totally naive with that, though. I mean, there are some phenomena in the galactic neighborhood that you could possibly exploit for energy resources.
Yeah.
And maybe there would be territorial conflicts in outer space. It seems very space opera, you know, but why not? I mean, there very well could be, and that's an idea that you encounter in the UFO literature again and again, is that there are all these different species, the reptilians, like you mentioned, the Greys, the Nordics, whatever, and they're all fighting basically a big war for resources, and Earth falls into the battlefield, and we're basically innocent bystanders dealing with these forces beyond our control, and they're using us for DNA, et cetera. And that's where I lose interest, frankly. I find that having an interest in science fiction and having looked at stories going back a long way, I see the UFO phenomenon as it's commonly depicted in some publications now, kind of reaching back to the kind of golden age science fiction in a way that I find unappealing and unconvincing. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing going on.
Mac, when we come back, let's talk about your After the Martian Apocalypse on Coast to Coast AM. Well, next hour, we'll open up the phone lines, give you an opportunity to chat with Mac Tonese. A little bit later on, last hour of the program, actress Daryl Hannah and environmentalist and alternative energy guru David Bloom join us as we talk about, of course, alternative energy. All that's coming up on Coast to Coast AM. Let's take a little time back to talk about the Martian apocalypse as well, and your theories, too, about the structures. And, of course, the moon as well. Ingo Swann, remote